Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole, a podcast for creators, where we stream live every Wednesday, 8 p.m. on Twitter Spaces. And tonight we're going to be talking about the dangers of comparing yourself to others. TyfloRen and I are going to be talking about that. And before we do, welcome back, Tyflo. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Moorph. I'm really excited for this talk, honestly. I've been listening to a lot of other creators' videos, like just preparing for it, taking notes from them, especially from Store Biggie and Devin Nash.
Yeah, some great creators there. There's a lot of people that talk about this issue. Maybe not as many as I think there should be, but there's a lot of people that talk about it because it is an important issue. And one of the things that you know that we have a problem with as streamers, as creators, is our mental health, because this is a grind and there's a lot that goes into it that can really affect us. And comparing yourself to others is one of the things that really can take a toll on you mentally. I guess the first thing, if we're going to get right into this here, one of the first things that we want to know is, why do we do it? Why do we compare ourselves to other people?
So looking at my notes here, I do see that a lot of us use comparison as a way to measure our success, and we tend to use it as giving us a baseline, no matter how lofty it may be, to the creator we look up to. And also something that I also resonate with this when it comes to comparison or inspiring myself to be like another creator is accountability. And if I want to delve more into that, it can be around like, accountability and comparison to having a somewhat similar schedule, or like content out pushes to like other creators I look up to.
Right. Yeah, it's a big deal. And it feels almost necessary. One thing that I've always told people since I've been giving this kind of advice is you need to know your competition. You need to know what people are doing. You need to understand what they're doing, not to imitate it, but to understand how you can do it better, how you can do it differently. And so right off the bat, I'm kind of inviting people to look at other people and compare themselves to an extent. And because it's kind of necessary, you can't blindly do any niche and not have some understanding what other people are doing, because if someone else is doing it right and you're having no traction, you need to understand a little bit of how they're doing what they do so you can improve what you do. I think it's just natural, but I do think that in this kind of environment that it can be harmful to us. On that note, what do you think are the dangers of comparing yourself? What are the ramifications of doing it?
So going back to what you said about having it be sort of like this way to like measure our success, I do see comparison and inspiration separated by a very fine line, with the inspiration part being like the teacher student aspect of it, and how I look up to you and other creators as well. That's the inspiration part, but it's very too often that we fall to the negative side of comparison, where we actually start feeling down about ourselves. We feel like we're not living up to our creator or the mentor's expectations of what they want to see out of us. And that's kind of like the negative cycle of it. And I'll even open up and say, like, it's very difficult to get out of that like space, if you will, of like overcoming that and then getting back on track to simply just keeping your head down and then pushing your content out there.
We put a lot of this pressure on ourselves. A lot of the reasons why we do this is self-invoked. You know, we are our own biggest critic, and I think that we're the ones who are saying our content is not good enough. Imposter syndrome, anxiety, all of those things kind of come into play here, and it kind of forces us in a way to do these constant comparisons. And we might not always think it's negative when we're doing it. We're just like, hey, I'm just trying to get better. But really, you're just sitting there and you're kind of seething, or you're jealous, or whatever the case may be. your like why don't I have the success that this person has had? I can tell you personally that there have definitely been times during my journey to date where I see somebody else who has a level of success that I do not, and I sit there and say, but I'm better at this or that than them. Why don't I have this success as well? Why don't I get these accolades? Anything like that. Now, what happens is some people can let that go and they're fine. Some people let that consume them to the point where they are unable to move past that comparison. And that stops them from growing. It stops them from changing because maybe they end up doubling down on their approach when the other person's approach really is valid. There is something good there that maybe you're comparing, but you refuse to take it on because you're so stubborn.
And going back to what you were saying too, of the part where it's I don't know why I'm not experiencing the same success as this creator. That's where I feel like the inspiration part of like looking up to someone and seeing someone as your teacher and mentor, that could easily erode where it's like you want the exact same successes as them and the same output. But at the same time too, you have to think about what were their circumstances when they released that specific content, or when they had that specific live stream. Was it in a different time zone? And also, did they take a lot of behind the scenes effort to really market what they wanted to push out to people? And I think too often, well, Sorbiggy said this in a recent video as well, that you don't take into account all the behind the scenes effort, the flops of like marketing like posts as well, that like this creator put in to like just get this one single thing gaining traction or engagement.
Right. Yeah, there's so much of that blaming after the comparison as well. Like, what's the one thing we always see people? Well, I don't get any views because of women. Right,
I've seen too many of that today.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's to the point now where I was telling somebody, they asked me, somebody on Twitter tagged me in a post because someone was essentially saying just that, and I'm at the point now where I just respond, I'm like, it's just pathetic. It really is, and when you compare yourself, you say all of these women are doing better than I am, and it's because of whatever reason. They're allowing themselves to be defeated by their own comparison and saying, I can't compete against that. When the reality is, those women streamers, they're working harder than you are. They are putting in more time, more effort. They're more entertaining. They're more engaging. They're doing everything they can do to succeed. And you are just watching them succeed and just wallowing in your own self-pity, unable to move past that. So there are a lot of dangers. That's the title of this podcast episode. A lot of dangers in comparison. And I think what we need to do, what people need to do to be able to move on from that and not let it become such a danger, is figure out better ways to use comparison and better lenses to look at the act of comparing yourself and the reasons why you wouldn't do it, so you can move on. So in your opinion, Ty, what would be some healthier ways to approach comparison, or healthier ways to deal with it, to look at it, so that you don't get yourself stuck in either of those three scenarios that I mentioned?
And I saw Insane Troll's comment, which I do want to integrate into this question. If you're looking only at numbers, then no, it's all stress. If you're saying, wow, their overlay is dope, I need to upgrade my setup, etc., then a little bit of almost a competitive push can be great. So, but if you compare other aspects of yourself to another creator, like similar overlays, or I'll even go as far as to say like Insane Troll is someone that I draw some inspiration from with how he interacts with his chat. And say and troll, if you want to confirm this with me, I remember you had some banter going on in one of your past streams with like who was the most sus out of all of your community or mods in general. So like having that kind of like interaction with my community, similar to how you have that banter with your community, that's something that I draw and like feed off of. I feel like that would be a great example of a healthy, not necessarily comparison, but inspiration building between both creators.
Yeah, that's the right way you want to do it. Now it's interesting. I know that I can get caught in a trap of unhealthy comparisons. So I consciously avoid watching too many streamers so I don't go down that hole. Now, there's somebody who very recently said, well, essentially the very helpful argument of you need to get over that, which anyone listening, that doesn't help. That doesn't help. Like when you're sad and someone just stopped doing that. Oh, okay. I feel better now. But no. So I know that I have a lot of work to do to turn the comparing people into more of a positive, healthy thing for myself instead of just negative. So I avoid it. But there are people that I watch, and it's usually from a more technical standpoint when I am trying to pick something up. Like I watch Nutty on Twitch because he is like a god of OBS and little tools, because he's a former developer. I'm a former developer, so I relate with him on that, and he is amazing with the things he can do. I love watching Harris Heller because the way he shoots his video, the ease in which he speaks to the camera, and the absolute crispness of every shot he's in is such an inspiration for how to shoot a video. And then you have someone like Epos Vox, who knows everything about everything. So I love watching him, and his isn't even a comparison for me. I can't know what he knows, but it's just fun to watch him. And then you have someone like Devin Nash, who is so thorough in his analysis when he approaches each subject. It's amazing to me. So I feel like my coping mechanism is watching people that I don't this is self-defeating too, but I don't feel I can get to that level of yet. And so I'm able to take a broad stroke of what they do and try to see how I can make myself better at it.
Right. No, I agree with so many of those points, especially when you were bringing up aspects of Heller and also Devin Nash that you aspire to. And also, I feel like those inspirations are something that are very attainable. Like just referencing M West, I also something I've noticed between M West and I, if we're like drawing inspiration from each other, is our stream titles and like how engaging our stream titles are, where M West asks a question, and then in similar fashion I might ask a question that's completely different, but the similarity between us both is our stream titles are what's engaging to our audience, and that's like one of the first things our viewers will come in and talk to us about, like answering that, or in my case with my mods, like just berating me on my hot takes for the day.
Well, where would it be without mods? I mean trolls. I mean mods. Hi, Average. So you want to try to get yourself to a point where you can objectively and safely compare. And I think a lot of this, and Tyflo and I talked about this before stream, we want to try to avoid playing amateur psychiatrists because we are not. But you know, it doesn't hurt to give you some ideas on how, you know, we kind of look at things to try to steer away from the negative aspects. So one thing I just mentioned I do is I avoid some things because I know I can struggle with comparisons. So when you're going into a stream, and whether you go into that stream or watch another creator with the idea that you're just going to look at what they do and see how you can better yourself, pay attention to your thoughts. If you feel yourself starting to get down or starting to feel jealousy or whatever, try to pay attention to how you feel at that time physiologically, and then separate yourself from that moment and kind of evaluate, wait, why am I feeling this way? Oh, I'm feeling jealous that this person is doing this thing and they have 1,000 people in here, but I feel like I'm doing a better job and I have 5. Separate yourself so you can look at it objectively, and then hopefully, like me, that helps you move on and just enjoy the content again.
I really want to go down the rabbit hole with those points you listed. Oftentimes when it comes to comparison, we don't take into account the outside factors and variables that creator probably went through. Sor Big E even called this out on his comparison, or like why you feel stuck as a creator video, where he actually said you don't see that the creator took a lot of time to edit and also find the right sounds and background music for their videos, or even the fact that when they were trying to market their video, some of their posts didn't really go viral, or like they felt like some of the things that they were promoting completely flopped out of the water. So, and this could even go into a different rabbit hole topic that we can talk about later, where the path to success is oftentimes paved in failure. So that creator you're comparing yourself to more than likely experienced a lot of failures too. And like, I'm not one to like talk highly about myself, but often, most recently, some viewers from TikTok have come into my live streams and said, oh, I really look up to you as a creator, or I really like how a lot of your videos on your alternate account have been going viral. And I'm just thinking, like, was a lot of trial and error there. If you look at some of my very old videos, they were not well edited, the timing was off, and like even now, I'll even admit some of my recent videos can like flop or don't get engagement, but that's not something that's going to bring me down.
And that's a great point. I'll give you another story. So I was interviewing Lady Harada Niwa this past Monday, and she does well on TikTok, on Twitch too. She's a Twitch partner. But she was saying, I put videos out there and sometimes they get 30, 40, 50,000 views, and sometimes they put them out and they only get 5, and I'm like, what? And I'm sitting here listening to her and be like, only 5? Half the time I would kill for 5,000, And then that moment, I started to feel a little bit of jealous that her only was 5K. For me, my only is 250, So, but I was like, oh, wait a second. No, she worked her ass off to get to that point, to be able to say only 5. And for her, she's not flexing. When she says only 5, it's the same as me saying I only got 500, right? It feels the same to her. So like, she's not flexing, and it's just where it is. And I needed to understand in that moment that I was allowing her success to overshadow myself and putting myself down because of that. And it takes a practice to be able to do that in the moment, but I've been through a lot of therapy, so I've learned some things. So
I'm cracking up right now because Devin Nash compared live streaming and content creation to marketing and sales, where he said, let's say a streamer doubles their viewership or even triples it within a 1 month span, and then they quote unquote fall back down again. Oftentimes streamers feel incredibly upset about themselves, that they feel like they're a failure. But with companies, like, you doubled and tripled your sales within a month and you fall back to baseline, they're like congratulating each other. They're not even down like about themselves when they fall back to baseline, because like, oh, it's a normal thing that we're experiencing this month. And he actually, to quote unquote say, you're not a failure in any metric whatsoever if you do experience that. You're just back to your normal self as a creator.
I think that this culture that we have as streamers, and we have to have these instantaneous and consistent results all the time, is not helpful unless you get in that right frame of mind and you can put it in perspective, like Tyflo was saying, and understand that when you know what your baseline is, you need to understand you're going to go up, You're going to go down. You're going to go up. You're going to go down. But you're going to have that baseline. Understand your baseline. If I know Insane Troll, I think he was listening earlier, but I tell the people in my mentorship program, when I'm looking at their stats, they go, yeah, but I'm down to 10 this month, but I was at 14 last month. And I'm looking at stats. I'm like, your baseline is 10. That means you did your job. Yes, the previous month, you had a spike for whatever reason, but your core is there. And they're like, it's because I'm changing games. I'm like, no, you have 10 no matter what game you play. So those are your 10 loyal viewers. I almost swore. I'm trying not to. Your 10 loyal viewers. And so understand that that's your base. Now just keep working your way up. But understand, if you have a month where you go back down to 10, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's your core. That's your new floor. Be happy with that.
And Sword Big E even called this out as well for like YouTube, where some of his viewers, quote unquote, said something about like a particular streamer falling off. He's just like, you said he fell off because he went from 3,000 average viewers to only 1,000. And then he's like, he still has 1,000 viewers, like more than like all of us here in chat right now. And he said like, your definition of falling off as a creator is completely like wrong on so many levels.
I think the bottom line here is comparing is, it is natural to do. There are numerous reasons why it is good to do, growth and all that, but it can be unhealthy if you go into it with a wrong mindset and you don't catch yourself when you're starting to think those negative thoughts of imposter syndrome, of jealousy, of stubbornness, anything like that are not going to help you through it.
I think with my summary on that, it's like where like I really wanted to touch on this point from Catliente, how there's like that feeling of jealousy being just a normal human part of you, and you just have to accept that you're going to experience jealousy, but what you do with that jealousy, how you use it and harness it, you could be productive. And I'll even throw this example in with Sword Big E, and even to an extent Pastor Gaines, of like taking that energy and being productive with it, and as blunt as I don't want to be about it, like just keeping your head down and creating your own content, and then like just making sure it gets pushed out there, rather than overthinking and then also stuck in that hole of like constant comparison. Like, why am I not getting the exact same things as this person? In fact, if you just keep your head down and also keep creating and innovating your content, you might actually experience the exact same things that creator you look up to is going through, like similar hardship and behind the scenes work of getting like a really good video, or like marketing your next live stream to people.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up now. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and share the podcast. Don't forget, we are here every Wednesday on Twitter Spaces at 8 p.m. If you have a comment or an idea for a future episode, make sure to drop us an email at downtherabbithole@elevated.media. Thanks, and have a great day.